Someone said that the Hanuman Chalisa is the most recited poem, devotional poem in the Hindu world. I don't know if I can verify that, but certainly it has a claim to being the most recited short text. So, may I ask how many of you know the Chalisa and how many of you recite it often? So that's good enough evidence for me. I think that in the sacred literature of Hinduism, Sri Hanuman stands unique. Many of the great bhaktas, many of the great devotees in the history of our tradition are known for a single outstanding quality. Some are remembered for their great poetry, some for their scholarship, some for asceticism, tapas, some for renunciation, the power of tyaga or vairagya. But I think that the few who have integrated in their lives the multiple roles, the multiple dimensions that Sri Hanumanji has. Because although we think of him primarily as a bhakta, as a great devotee of Sri Ram, we have to remember he was also a healer. And these are dimensions that I like to discuss as we unfold this series. He was a healer, he was a diplomat, he was a scholar, he was a warrior of incredible fearlessness. He was a counselor, he was a consoler, he was a yogi, and you can probably add some titles and roles of your own. So I think it's very difficult to find another character in history and literature, Hindu and beyond the Hindu tradition, who are as multidimensional as he is. And I think to understand the full measure of his multifaceted gifts, his multifaceted character, one would really have to study both the Valmiki text as well as the Tulsidas text in great detail. But fortunately, Tulsidas has given us this shorter composition, this shorter poem, in which he brings together everything that is important about this person. It is, as far as we know, this is Goswami Tulsidas's only Chalisa composition. The one to Hanuman is perhaps the earliest Chalisa composition in the Hindu tradition. We've had many Chalisa compositions following, but I can't think of any that preceded the Hanuman Chalisa. And as you know, Chalisa means 40. So this is a particular genre of poetic writing, a composition of 40 verses. Tulsidas follows the traditional style of poetry, writing it in the Chaupai style, which would be 4 rhyming verses. The first verse is the Doha, which we will come to in a moment. So after Hanuman Chalisa, we've had many other compositions, Shiva Chalisa, Durga Chalisa, Lakshmi Chalisa, and so on, but all modeled on Tulsidas's original composition, Hanuman Chalisa. As I said, I think that Valmiki, as we know, is the first author of Ramayana in Sanskrit, and then Tulsidas wrote his version of the Ramayana in Awadhi, North Indian Hindi dialect. And it's quite true that the Ramcharitmanas of Tulsidas is the most popular version of the Ramayana, in the same way that the Hanuman Chalisa is perhaps the most popular of all Chalisa compositions. Now, before starting the text, I want to spend the opening few minutes of my discussion with you this morning reflecting on an important question. Because if we are going to benefit from the study of this text, I think this question is important. How do we view the Hanuman Chalisa? And in a larger sense, how do we view the Ramayana as a text which tells us in great detail about the life of Sri Ram and Hanumanji. Now, many people quickly dismiss texts like Ramayana, Ramcharitmanas, and would say that we can't take these texts seriously because this text is not history. It is not historically true. This is an argument. Some people say, if you look at the text in the Hindu tradition, you look at other texts, what distinguishes the texts of other traditions from the Hindu texts is that those texts are history. The Hindu tradition only has myths. We don't have history. And that's a question that I want us to address for a few minutes, and then we get into the text, because this puts it in an important framework if we are to benefit from contemplating a text like the Hanuman Chalisa. Now, let us start with a writer, a composer like Tulsidas. Tulsidas is not a historian in the sense in which we understand history today, but it doesn't make him any less significant. So consider this. If you are, let us say someone is a modern historian, is writing a life story of one of the early presidents of the United States, George Washington. So there are certain kinds of research methods. There are certain ways of inquiring. There are documents to consult. There are artifacts to look at. The modern science of history has its own kinds of methods of inquiry, which a good historian will follow. If you are a historian in the modern age, you have to conform. People will scrutinize your work, and they have ways of trying to verify if what you represent is history accurately or not. That's a very modern way of writing and doing a history. Not that all modern historians are objective, but at least there's a certain discipline that you need to follow. Tulsidas or Valmiki are not historians in that modern sense. And that doesn't make what they say less important. We've got to understand the difference. So take someone like Tulsidas. I'm going back for a moment to the Ramcharitmanas. Let's look at his magnus opus, the big composition. He sits to write the story of Ram. He calls it the Ramcharitmanas, the lake, filled with the work or the actions of Ramcharitmanas. How does he write? How does he approach his text? He is not a historian, he's a poet. He's a devotional poet. And that's an important thing. He's a devotional poet. His criteria of truth is very different from a modern historian's criteria of truth. Now, I'm not saying that Sri Ram didn't exist. I believe that there was a person. It's very difficult to imagine the impact of a figure like Ram without some historical validity. But when Tulsidas sits to write, he's not conducting his writing in the same way that a modern historian will research all of the documents and artifacts and look at archaeological evidence and so on. His criteria of truth is a spiritual criteria. And what we must remember when we come to think of the Hindu tradition, and this is a very, very important thing, that our notion of truth has a certain unique quality. Something does not have to be historically true to be true. Historical truth is only one way of looking at truth. So when Tulsidas is deciding, what am I going to include in this Ramcharitmanas, he's asking himself, is this story, is this event, does it truthfully represent the nature of God? Okay, so I'll give you an example in Tulsidas. So he has many wonderful narratives in his account. So he has this wonderful narrative of Sri Ram going out to meet Shabari, this woman living lonely, this outcast, rejected woman. So Ram goes out to look for her. Right? And she welcomes him and he accepts food from her. In some of the accounts of Ramayana, she even tastes the food, the fruits, to make sure that they're good to offer to him. If you read that story and you are fixated on asking, did this happen or not, you missed the point. You missed it completely. Because what Tulsidas wants to say there is that God is compassionate, and that is truth. Then this narrative becomes true because it tells that to ask whether it happened or not is to miss it completely. So when he's writing about Ram, he's asking how well a particular narrative exemplifies the nature of God. And that's true. Because the nature of God is constant. Right? So the same when we look at Hanumanji. So for Tulsidas, truth is, does it tell us something insightful about the nature of God? So we should look at, when we read the Ramcharitmanas, we look at the whole text and ask, what does this text tell us about God's nature? The same with Hanuman Chalisa. We read Hanuman Chalisa now. With Ram, he is speaking about Ishvara, about Bhagavan. With Hanumanji, he is speaking about the devotee, the bhakta. So we read Hanuman Chalisa and we ask ourselves, what does this text tell us about what it means to be a devotee of God? How does this particular incident, this story, this narrative tell us what it means to be a devotee of God? Not whether it's historically happened or not, because that's not the criteria of truth. I'm saying I believe as a Hindu that there is historical truth in this. But it is told in a way to highlight something else. It's told in a way to highlight something else. Now, why can we do that in the Hindu tradition? We can do that, and I want you to understand this very well. Because in the Hindu tradition, we are dealing with a tradition in which the knowledge that saves, if I use the word save, is not historical. This is, I'm not trying to put down any other tradition, but I want to highlight an important contrast. In many other traditions, whether something is historically true or not is at the very heart of the issue. You know, I'll give you an example. So, about 2 weeks ago, there was a little fragment of a manuscript that was found. It is a calling card size manuscript found. It's text, right? But there's a little reference there to my wife. Jesus, there's a reference there in that text. The text doesn't go back to Jesus' life. It's about 300 or 400 years after. But there's a reference to my wife. That's an important thing, historical truth. If he was married, then a lot of things changes. Historical truth is important. That Jesus died on the cross. And that because that death is what makes human salvation possible. So history becomes very central. Whether it happened as it said or it didn't happen, it says it's very at the heart of the matter. That's not the same with the Hindu tradition. Not that we don't take history seriously, but when it comes to religious wisdom, truth is not historical. What I am is what is important. And the tradition says, you are that Atman. That's what you was, that's what you are, that's what you will be. Truth, the criteria of truth is not, history doesn't have the same significance when it comes to the centrality of history and religion. Truth is not historical in the same way. So therefore, with a text like Hanuman Chalisa or Ramcharitmanas, we bring different questions. We bring different questions, a different way of assessing and reading the text becomes important. So when we study the Chalisa, the question is, what does this text tell us about the Hindu tradition's understanding of what it means to be a devotee of God. And how does any particular narrative that Tulsidas employs throw light on that? How does it throw light on that? This is what is important. So this is why you will find, if you go to Gujarat, if you go to Karnataka, if you go to Tamil Nadu, if you go to Bengal, and you all have different versions of the Ramayana. So the Bengalis have read the text, they have enriched the stories in a particular way, and so have done in different parts. That's not problematic. Because it's, we're also reflecting. The stories they're alive. Every time they're transmitted, the one who tells the story, will bring something new and something fresh to it. Will enrich the story with the history and culture of his or her own context and location. At the same time, enriching our understanding of God. The tradition has that kind of flexibility to accommodate. That is a rich stream that is constantly nourished by the way in which Hindus across the centuries read these texts. So the Hindu tradition doesn't collapse if on the basis of history, because it is not dependent on history in the same way. So I think if we keep that in mind, then I think our study of the composition of Tulsidas will be fruitful and will be meaningful to us. What I think, if you want a term to keep in mind what I am saying, I think we can speak of it as a telling of history with metaphorical meaning. When you tell the life of Ram, it may be a historical nugget there, but you're telling it, you embellish it with metaphorical meaning. The meaning of it lies in the spiritual truth, not in its literal truth. So many people misunderstand, or Hindus have all kinds of fantastic stories and narratives which can't be true. Well, it depends on how you understand truth. Every Hindu story has a truth in it. You have to know how to find that truth, how to see that truth, how to contemplate it, how to reflect upon it. You take any important Hindu story, and you will see. You take a story of Lord Shiva swallowing poison and holding it in his throat. Yeah, there's something there. There is a truth there that is not historical, but it is eternal. It tells us something about the nature of God. So with those few words, I want to turn now to the opening doha. The Tulsidas starts with the doha, the very famous doha of the Hanuman Chalisa. Shri Guru Charana Saroja Raj Nijaman Mukura Sudhar Varnao Raghuvar Vimal Jasa Jodayak Bhalchar Buddhiheen Tanu Janike Sumiram Pavan Kumar Bal Buddhi Vidya Deho Mohi Harahu Kalesha Vikar. Please sing it with me, because I'm hearing your voices only faintly. Shri Guru Charana Saroja Raja Nijaman Mukur Sudhar Varnao Raghuvar Vimala Jasa Jodayak Bhalchar Buddhiheen Tanu Janike Sumiram Pavan Kumar Bal Buddhi Vidya Deho Mohi Harahu Kalesha Vikar. Sometimes I wonder, when Tulsidas sat on the banks of the Ganga at Varanasi and wrote Sri Guru, if he knew that in the 2,500 years afterwards this would be sung in the temple in the United States of America, he would have no idea that the United States of America existed, or that Hindus will congregate and recite his composition after 500. What a marvelous story. So he begins very beautifully, as you see, Shri Guru Charana Saroja Raja Nijamana Mukura Sudhar. He uses a metaphor again, very suggestive metaphor. And in this metaphor, he likens his mind, and this is a very interesting metaphor, there's much to say on it, to a mirror, an unclean mirror. Nijamana Mukura Sudhar. The unclean mirror imagines his mind. And before he composes this, his mind has to be cleansed. As you clean a mirror, the mirror of the mind has to be purified. And what does he purify with? You can't scrub it in the traditional sense. Shri Guru Charana Saroja Raja. The dust. With the dust of my teacher's feet, with the dust of the teacher's feet, the Guru's feet, he says, I cleanse the mirror of my mind. Shri Guru Charana Saroja Raja. My Nijamana Mukura. So that I cleanse the mirror of my mind with the dust of my teacher's feet. It has practical significance because some of you might remember, I don't know, that in ancient, not too ancient times, you use sand to scrub utensils, cooking utensils. The grains of sand were used as a cleansing agent in the absence of more modern detergents. But Tulsidas turns to his teacher, remembers his teacher, and in that remembering of his teacher, it's a purifying act. To remember his teacher is cleansing, it's purifying. Because it's not simply the remembrance of the physical form of his teacher. It is remembering, the person his teacher is, his wisdom, his virtue. And a teacher, a guru, is a person whose memory lifts us to a higher state, higher mental and emotional state. When we contemplate this person, our better selves are awakened, our higher selves are awakened. A teacher is an inspiring figure, and this is what Tulsidas is doing in remembering his guru. It may even be more significant because according to one historical account, Tulsidas was an orphan boy who was pulled out from the streets and raised by his teacher. So there may be many more reasons for him to be grateful, not only for his teacher as a giver of wisdom, but actually for one who nurtured him into adulthood. The metaphor of the mirror is important for many reasons. One is that he knows that this writing is a religious act for him. He's about to compose a poem in which he's going to talk about one of the most famous devotees in the history of the Hindu tradition, Rambachan Hanuman. And if he has to write well and he has to write accurately about who Hanuman is, he has to himself become like Hanuman. He has to unite himself with the subject of his composition. He will understand Hanuman much better, he will compose much better when he becomes like Hanumanji. So to write for him as a religious poet, to write is to be. He has to become like that which he wants to write. And so this process of purifying before composing is lifting himself, lifting his mindset, and uniting it with the object of his composition, Hanumanji, so that, like a clean mirror, the personality of Hanumanji will shine through this poem. The poem will reflect, like a mirror, a clean mirror, accurately reflecting that which is its object. Similarly, a clean mind will much better reflect that about which he wants to write. So, Nijamana Mukura Sudhar. So, cleaning the mind before engaging in an act like this is very important for Goswami Tulsidas. But there is one thing else, another very important point that I want to mention about this metaphor of the mirror. If you will go back with me a little bit to our study of the Upanishad that we did here, Kena Upanishad we studied, and then we studied Shankara's Tattva Bodha. And all of those two texts, the Upanishad texts, Kena Upanishad and Tattva Bodha, centers on Atma Gyan, knowledge of oneself. Who am I? What is the art? What is the self? What is the art? And we learned there that Atma is na tatra chakshur gacchati, is not that which the mind can see, or the eye can see, sorry. Na tatra chakshu, eye, because it's not an object. You can't see it as an object. And when the Kena Upanishad says na tatra chakshur gacchati, it can't be seen by the eye because it's not an object in space. Na manaha, not also in the mind, with the mind. So it can also be made an object in the mind. Like, something is very far from me now. I want to imagine a good friend. I can imagine my friend's face in my mind. And then I see it. So there is antar pratyaksha. So it's, there's outward seeing, like I see this watch. Bahir pratyaksha. And then antar pratyaksha is when you imagine something in your mind and you see it also in the mind. But Atma can't also be seen in the mind because it is the seer of the mind also. Yan manasana manute yena ahur manomatam. Kena Upanishad. That which the mind cannot see, that which the mind cannot know, but because of which the mind knows. Yan manasana manute yena ahur manomatam, the know of the mind. So, how do we know the know of the mind? Okay. So you don't know what you look like unless you look into a mirror. Just imagine that. If we had no mirrors, we would never know what we look like. Maybe it would be a good thing. Maybe we don't worry so much about what we look like. But just imagine, if we had no mirrors, we'll have to depend on others to tell us what we look like. But that wouldn't give us the same image of ourselves. So the mirror is a great blessing. Of course, it brought its own kinds of complexities. But only with the aid of a mirror, you know who you are. You see your face. You know what you look like. When it comes, this image here of the mind as the mirror, and the clean mirror that has nothing. So, in this mirror of the mind, with knowledge, Atman recognizes itself. How can that which is a subject know itself? It needs some reflecting medium. As you need a mirror to see yourself, Atman, which is pure consciousness, awareness, it is only in the mind, a knowledgeable mind that says, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, I am the infinite. That's how knowledge takes place. When I look into that mirror of the mind, that mirror can give me wrong knowledge, it can give me right knowledge. When it gives me right knowledge, it's the knowledge that the Atman is Brahman, that I am that infinite being. But that mirror, Nijamana Mukura Sudhar, Sri Guru Charana, it must be a mirror that is cleansed by the teaching of the Guru, and then one recognizes oneself. Like, if you have a convex or a concave mirror, it will give you a false impression of what you look like. So thus, ignorance is like a concave or convex mirror. You look into it and you don't see what you really look like. When the mirror is clean and cleansed with wisdom, you look in it and then you recognize who you are. You see yourself as you are. So it's the Guru's teaching. Ignorance is like dust, raja. Ignorance is a kind of dust. The Guru's teaching is the cleaning of that dust so that knowledge takes place. So Sri Guru Charana Saroja Raja Nijamana Mukura Subha Vara now Raghu Vara Vimala Jasa Jodayaka Phalachar. So after beginning with the first two lines, remembering his teacher, he then remembers God, Sri Ram. So he refers to Ram as Raghuvar, Vara now Raghuvara. Raghu is, Sri Ram was born in the family, Raghuvamsh, the family of the Raghu. So Raghuvar means the best among the Raghus, the foremost in this Raghuvamsha, this Raghu family. Jodayaka Phalachar. Ram, God, who blesses us with all of life's goals. You know what the four goals are: artha, wealth; kama, pleasure, joy, happiness, pleasure; dharma, virtue, ethics; and of course, the highest of all is liberation or moksha. But mentioning the four goals is a way of saying all of these are important. The good life is the life in which all of the four goals are met. When one is missing, something is, you might have wealth, but then you don't have happiness or pleasure, karma. So artha without karma, what's the point of it? What is the point of being wealthy if you're not happy, or there's no joy in wealth? And at the same time, artha and karma must be guided by ethics, virtue, dharma, and all of these must lead to knowledge of God or liberation. Now, one of the interesting questions, as you can see, Tulsidas, in the order in which he's composing, as I said, he begins with his Guru, Sri Guru Charanaka Saroja Raja, and then he goes Varanau Raghuvara. Then he goes to God. So some might ask, well, why not reverse it? Why does he begin by, with the Guru and then mentions God? Why that particular order? Is not God more important? Shouldn't Tulsidas begin Hanuman Chalisa with recognition of Sri Ram and then his Guru? Why that particular order? I think the best answer was given many, again, probably about the time of Tulsidas, because in some historical accounts they were contemporaries. Kabir Das and Tulsidas, they were all bhaktas. Kabir Das has a very famous doha, maybe some of you might remember, where he says, Guru Govinda dono kharke kiske lago pai. So he says, suppose you have God and your Guru before you. Standing before you, Guru Govinda dono, these two stand before you, kharke. Kiske lago pai? Whose feet will you touch first? He asks in this beautiful doha. Guru Govinda dono kharke, kiske lago pai? Where would you bow? Where would your head first touch? And he gives his answer. Balihari Guru aapke Govindiyo batai. So I will go, he says, I will put my head at the feet of my teacher. Balihari Guru aapne. Why? Because if without that teacher, I would not even know that God, this is God. Govinda Diyo Batai. It is because of what he said that I am able to recognize God. So Tulsidas begins with Guru. Sri Guru Charana Saroja, Jan Varanau Raghuvara Vimala Jasa. And there's a meaning in that order. And you look at all, this is one of the things about, again, something very unique about the Hindu tradition. And God doesn't mind if you're worrying. If you're worrying about it. God doesn't mind. God is happy when the bhakta is praised before him. God is delighted if the bhakta, the devotee is honored before God. Because Bhagavan is humble. So he doesn't mind that the bhakta is praised. That's a very important. And this is something very special about our Hindu tradition. The reverence for the teacher. That in a composition, a religious poet the honor the teacher before God. You would not find that. It's not an ordinary thing. But Kabir will write, Guru Govind Dono Karge Kiske Lage. Just think about it. We recite Guru Stotra. It's a very beautiful composition also. It begins Akhanda Mandala Karam Vyaptam Yena Characharam Tat Padam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guravena. Akhanda Mandala Karam. The one who has created everything. Akhanda Mandala Karam. The Karana. The cause from which everything has come. Akhanda Mandala Karam Vyaptam Yena Characharam. Who exists in everything. The one who has created all things. Vyaptam Yena Chara. And who is inside, within. Inside and outside of all things. Tat Padam Darshitam. And the one who, and that one that I did not know. Tat Padam. The one who has said, that is God. Tat Padam Darshitam Yena. The one who's made it possible for me to recognize Tasmai Shri Guravena. I salute that teacher who has awakened me to this infinite reality. So, Varanau Raghuvara Vimala Jasa Jodayaka Phalacha. Guru, Bhagavan, Bhakta. Buddhihi Natanu Janike. Sumirao Pavan Kumar. Bala Buddhi Vidya Dehu Mohi. Harahu Kalesha Vikar. So, see how he is moving through this composition in this very beautiful sequence, very profound, well chosen order, well chosen, carefully chosen words. One of the beautiful things about Tulsidas is his accomplishments are so many, but perhaps more than anyone else, he took the dialect, because prior to Tulsidas, there were few compositions that treated, religious matters in a language other than Sanskrit. But he chose to write in the language of the people, to bring all of these beautiful ideas in a language of the common person. That's a tremendous. At the beginning of his Ramayana, you should go and look at Balkan, how he's very aware of this, and he's saying, I'm using this language and I'm so sorry. He's almost apologetic for using this kind of, this dialect to talk about Sri Ram. But he says, but there's a greater good. The greater good is to be accomplished despite the fact that I'm using this language. So, Buddhihi Natanu Janike Sumirao Pavan Kumar. So he knows he needs a pure mind. He begins by remembering his teacher. He's remembered God. But in writing this also, he needs wisdom. He needs a good instrument, the mind, but he needs knowledge. So he turns to the remembrance of Hanuman. We see his extraordinary humility here as well. So, Buddhihina Tanujaniki. I know that I don't have the wisdom to write. I can't do justice to this subject. Because I am buddhihina. I lack the kind of knowledge that is necessary to write about someone like Hanuman. Buddhihina. To be without knowledge. Sumirao Pavana Kumar. Therefore, he prays. I'm writing about you. Please, you bless me with the wisdom so that I could truthfully compose about you. Bala Buddhi Vidya Dehu Mohi. Very interesting sentence. Now, two ways of looking at this sentence. You can take each word separately. You can say Bala, Buddhi, Vidya, Dehu Mohi. And then you can translate it. Bala as strength, Buddhi as intelligence, and vidya as wisdom. And that's very, very good. That's a fine way of translating it. I want to suggest also that you can read it, the three words together. Bala buddhi vidya. In other words, bala buddhi qualifies vidya. It's another way of reading. What kind of vidya do I want? Bala buddhi. Bala buddhi vidya. Not bala buddhi vidya, but bala buddhi vidya. And then we get a beautiful way of thinking about it. In other words, if you pray for bala buddhi vidya, then you are praying for a particular kind of wisdom. A wisdom that strengthens the mind. Knowledge that empowers the mind. Vidya that is bala buddhi, that empowers or strengthens the human mind. Why I am saying that is that I think bala buddhi vidya may be distinguished from other kinds of knowledge. And the example that I often use, is the example of someone like Duryodhana in Mahabharata. And, he has a very famous moment in the text where he says, I know what is right. I have vidya. I know what is right. I know dharma. Janami dharma nacha me pravritti. Duryodhana says, I know you think I don't know what is right? I know janami dharma. I know what is right. I know dharma. I know what I am doing is wrong. Nacha me pravritti. But I can't do it. Janami dharma nacha me pravritti. I know what is right, but I can't seem to be able to do it. Janami adharma nacha me nivritti. And I know what is wrong, and I can't stay away from it. I can't cease doing it. He makes this confession. It's a very human confession. Janami dharma nacha me pravritti. Pravritti means to go towards something. So I know what is right, but I'm not attracted to it. And I know what is wrong, adharma, nacha me nivritti. I can't keep myself from it. Bala buddhi vidya is the wisdom that enables you, strengthens you to do what is right. To have wisdom and not to be able to act on the basis of that wisdom is really what the problem is. But here Tulsidas is saying, grant me that wisdom that expresses itself, expresses itself consistently in what I do. It empowers my mind to do what is right. That's called bala buddhi vidya. Wisdom that empowers, wisdom that strengthens, wisdom that expresses itself in action, wisdom that is empowering, that motivates, inspires, makes a difference. I would say, we can speak of that as bala buddhi vidya, as distinguished from other kinds of knowledge. So that's something that we will see in other verses when he speaks about Hanumanji. So buddhi hina tanujan ke sumirao pavana kumar bala buddhi vidya dehu mohi harahu kalesha vikar. And in this doha, he introduces, we'll see Hanuman Chalisa also, he uses many names for Hanumanji. He keeps changing the names. And this is what it means, okay, all of these names are just synonyms. A name is, but in the Hindu tradition, a name is not used recklessly. If a name is used, it means there's something that he wants to highlight. So he begins here with one of the names of Hanumanji, Pavan. Pavan Kumar, he calls him. That's the first name he introduces him by. Later on, he will call him Hanumanji, but he doesn't call him Hanumanji first. He calls him Pavan Kumar. Sumirao Pavan Kumar. So for a moment, think about it. So Pavan has many meanings. Pavan means wind. It's also used for breath, Pavan. And Kumar is son, the son of Pavan. So why does he introduce him first with this name, Pavan Kumar? At least three reasons. Maybe, if you're familiar with the language, you might come up with other meanings. Pavan as wind. Wind is always moving. Wind is energetic. Wind represents movement. Wind is tirelessly active. It's on the move. And Hanumanji, as we will see in Chalisa, in Ramayana, he's always on the move. He's always on the move. He's energy embodied. Energy embodied. The moments in which he is inactive are very, very few. One of the few moments when he's inactive is when he's standing on the shore, waiting to go across Lanka, and he's thinking. He's contemplating. An interesting point in the text. But you think of him in Ramcharitmanas, he's always in motion. He's always moving. He travels back and forth between the southern coast of India, the island of Lanka. He's back. He goes to from Lanka to Himalayas to save Lakshmana. He's sent to Ayodhya by Sri Ram to find out how Bharat is doing. And therefore the natural element that's most appropriately described that kind of energy is wind. It's powerful, it's in motion, it's movement, Pavan Kumar. Secondly, Pavan also means that which purifies. Pavana, that which cleanses, that which purifies. In fact, the wind is called Pavan because it purifies. It gets rid of good wind, move dust away. Like, you know, we need winds now with the leaves falling. If it blows in the right direction, you get it off your driveway. So the wind is called Pavan because the wind is purifying. And Hanumanji, as we will see, you know, he's one of the finest examples of pure service, of Nishkam Karma. Nishkam Karma, of pure service for the sake of love, without thought of self. He lived only to do the will of Ram, for the will of Ram, to become Ram's instrument in the world. He mirrored Ram's will perfectly, and he served Ram because he had no selfish purpose of his own, but to serve God. The third reason I think about the significance of the name Pavan as the first name that introduces Hanumanji is wind. Pavan is breath, and Pavan is the breath of life, that which sustains life. Without wind and air, there is no life. And there are so many moments in this Ramcharitmanas. Tulsidas will point out all of those moments in the Chalisa when Hanumanji's actions are also life-saving. So he's Pavan as a giver of life. You can think of, he saves the life of Lakshmana when he finds that healing herb in the Himalayas. He actually saves Sita ji in Ashoka Grove because she was desperate, she was suicidal, she was losing hope until he came and they brought the message of Ram, and that restored her hope and her confidence, and that she will be saved. So he saves Sita, he saves Lakshmana, he saves Bharat. Bharat had taken a vow also in Ramcharitmanas that if Sri Ram does not come back after 14 years, he will not live. And Hanuman went to him and gave this message that Ram is coming. And he also saves Bharat's life. So he's Pavan in that sense also. The one who saves others. The one who saves the lives of others. So interesting also, final point on the name, is that Tulsidas chooses to introduce him not by his personal name Hanuman, but by his parents. In this case, later on he'll speak about his mother, but he calls him Pavan Kumar, the son of Pavan. I think that this is Tulsidas' own very special way of saying that a good child, at the back of every good child is a good parent. Is his own way of acknowledging the significance of the introducing the child with the parent's name. In other words, you can't express, if we honor Hanumanji, let's also remember that they are parents. In this case, there is a father, Pavan. So you can't honor the child without gratitude also for the parent who has nurtured and raised this child. To celebrate the child is also to celebrate the parents' presence in the child, the parents in the life of the child. As I say, we are children of our parents before we get a personal name. Until you have a personal name when you are the son of or daughter of so and so. Until you have a name, so you always first the daughter or son of a mother or a father before you are called. So you can think of it in many ways. You can change your name, but you can't change your parents. So whatever you wish to call Hanumanji, he'll all be Pavan Kumar. And whatever name you give to yourself, you can't change the fact, the basic fact of your parents. I think Tulsidas is reminding us of this by calling him Pavan Kumar first instead of by a personal name. So this is the Doha, and Buddhi hi na tanu janike sumirav Pavan Kumar bala buddhi vidya dehu mohi harahu kalesha vikar. So may I, by remembering my teacher, my God, and the devotee, the bhakta, may I be liberated, may I be free from all suffering. And then he goes into the first chaupai of Hanuman Chalisa. Jai Hanuman Gyan Gun Sagar, Jai Kapishati Hulok Ujagar, Jai Hanuman Gyan Gun Sagar, Jai Kapishati Hulok Ujagar, Ram Duta Tulit Baldhama, Anjani Putra Pavan Sutanama, Ram Duta Anjani Putra Pavan Sutanama. So now, Chaupai, Jai Hanuman Gyan Gun Sagar, Jai Kapishati Hulok Ujagar. Everyone four verses. Ram Duta Atulita Baladhama Anjani Putra Pavana Sutanama. So what a poet, what a writer says about his composition, about his subject at the very beginning of the composition, always gives us a clue to what he or she considers to be the most important thing you want to say about the person's most important quality. And although we often think of Hanumanji and we often remember him for his physical prowess, his warrior-like abilities, his strength as a warrior, this is not what Tulsidas highlights. He says, Jai Hanuman Jnana Guna Sagar. Jnana Sagar, Guna Sagar. See what he focuses upon. Not physical strength, but wisdom. Wisdom. His wisdom, and couples it very beautifully. Jai Hanuman Jnana Guna Sagar. He puts Jnana and Guna together significantly. So Tulsidas, in highlighting Hanumanji's wisdom above all else, Jnana Sagar, an ocean of wisdom, of knowledge. In fact, he is following the Valmiki text. And in Valmiki, when Sri Ram, Valmiki has the account of Hanumanji's meeting with Ram. Tulsidas, adds his own enrichment to this. And this is how I'll show you something in the text. This is what I mean about history and how the incident is treated in Valmiki and in Tulsidas. So you understand something about Hindu writers. Anyway, in Valmiki, Sri Ram, of course, meets Hanumanji and they have a conversation. And at the end of the conversation, Sri Ram turns to his brother Lakshmana and he makes a comment about Hanumanji. And there he says, Na Rigveda Vinitasya na yajurveda vidarinaha, na samaveda vidushaha shakyameva prabhashitam. So he says that, Lakshman, did you hear him? Did you hear how he spoke? Did you listen to the speech of this person? And he could not speak in the way he spoke if he was not a knower of the Vedas. Na Rigveda Vinitasya. No one can speak like him without a knowledge of Rigveda. Na Yajurveda, not without knowing Yajur or Samveda. One will not speak. Like this is a very, in other words, comment. This is a very learned man, very learned person, Lakshmana. So Ram first noticed also jnana. That was what first struck him. Wisdom in this person, a person of knowledge. Now, Tulsidas in Kishkinda Kand is also writing of this encounter. And you know the basic elements of the story, the struggle between Bali and Sugriv. Hanumanji was working as a minister in the government of Sugriv. They lost the kingdom. They were in exile because of fear of his brother. And then in Tulsidas's narrative, they see both of them. They see these two young men walking. And Sugriv is full of fear. He sends Hanumanji in disguise to find out who they are. So Hanumanji goes and he asks, he interrogates them. Kotumasyamala gaura sharira Shatri rupa firahu banavira. And Tulsidas, Kathina bhumi komala padagami kavana hetu bana bichara viswa. Who are you two? Walking like this, he's very observant, your souls look very tender. You are not rural people, you're not forest dwellers, your souls will not be as soft and tender as they are. Who are you? He asks, he talks to them. And then Ram replies and identifies himself. Well, Kosale Sadasarata ke jai. We are the sons, Hampitu Vachanamani Banai. We are the sons of Dasarat. We are here in obedience to our father's words, Nama, Rama. We are two brothers, our names are Rama and Lakshmana. And, Sita ji was with us, but we lost her. And Ram speaks. And Tulsidas, he says, which Valmiki doesn't, he says, Prabhu Pahichana. He adds something now to this encounter. He says, when Ram spoke, Hanumanji Prabhu Pahichana. He recognized God. Pareu gai charana. And he falls at his feet. So sukha uma jai nahi barna. With great joy in his heart, he falls at the feet of Ram. So, is that true? Coming back to my question, is that true or is that false? Just think of the question. If you ask if it's true or false, you missed it. You missed it. You missed it because of many things happening in that Tulsidas' account. First question is, why does he recognize Sri Ram only when Ram speaks? Why didn't he recognize him simply by looking at him? Why did it take the word? Well, God is always there. But as you say with Kabir Das Doha, Guru Govind dono kharke kiske lage pa. Because of the Guru's word, he's there. So it is a word, it is because of the teaching that you recognize. So Rama's word is Veda. Is the word because of which you recognize God, you come to know. Rama's word is the teaching. So he has to wait for that word. And then yes, this is Ram. After Ram is pointed out to him by the Shabda. By Shruti. Shruti is that which is heard. Veda is called Sruti, that which is heard. So he hears and he recognizes. It's something very important. And when he recognizes, what happens? When you come to know God, if you ask, well, did Hanumanji really fall? Well, again, you've missed it. Because Tulsidas wants to say that when a person comes to know God, something really happens to that person. Life turns around. You don't stand again. You're not in the same place. You're not in the same place. If you're really awakened to God, you will be something transformative, something very different. To illustrate that great transformation, he says, Hanumanji fell. He could not stand, He fell in a great act of humility. And that's true. There's something profoundly true in it. That is truth in a way that transcends history. That's always true. Something like that will always be true. Whenever a human being recognizes God, his or her life will be changed. It will be transformed. It's a revolutionary moment. And he wants to signify that by describing Hanumanji's meeting with Ram in this way. Because once he recognized Ram, he's no longer Sugriv minister. He's no longer Sugriv Sachiva. He's Rama's Duta. He no longer works for anybody else. And in fact, at one point Tulsidas says that, Uma Rama Subhav Jehi Jana Tahi Bhajana Taji Bhavana Ana. That Tulsidas says, once someone comes to recognize God, that person will work for no one else. If even he or she is working for someone else, they're actually working for God. One who recognizes God will become a servant of God. And this is what we see here in Hanumanji's life. So Jai Hanuman Agyan Aguna Saga, the one who recognized Ram immediately when Ram spoke, but also he is not only the ocean of wisdom, he is Guna Sagar, virtue. Wisdom, as I said before, learning is not truly learning. Wisdom is not truly wisdom. Vidya is not truly Vidya unless it expresses itself in a life of virtue. To know good is to become good. To know is to be. And this is the unity that Tulsidas wants to establish about Hanumanji. He's Jnana Guna Sagar. He's knowledgeable, but his wisdom flows in a very virtuous way of being. Unlike, as we said, with Duryodhana, who knew but who had Jnana but no Guna. Hanumanji is rich in both. Jai Hanuman, Jnana Guna Sagar. And later on we will see many examples in the Chalisa where this Jnana and Guna will come together. We'll speak about that in more detail. So I think I will stop here with the Doha and the first two lines of Chaupai, and we will continue with the Chalisa. I hope you will all come and we'll enjoy Tulsidas's rich composition on the life of Hanumanji. Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna स्वामी की जय, प्यारे राघव की जय, सिया स्वामी की जय, प्यारे राघव की जय, सिया स्वामी की जय, प्यारे राघव की जय, सिया स्वामी की जय। बोलो हनुमान कृपालु की जय जय जय, बोलो हनुमान कृपालु की जय जय, सिया स्वामी की जय, प्यारे राघव की जय, सिया स्वामी की जय, प्यारे राघव की जय, बोलो हनुमान कृपालु की जय जय जय, बोलो हनुमान कृपालु की जय जय जय, सिया स्वामी की जय, प्यारे राघव की जय, सिया स्वामी की जय, प्यारे राघव की जय। वीर हनुमान अति बलवाना, राम नाम रसिया रे, हे प्रभु मन बसिया रे। वीर हनुमान अति बलवाना, राम नाम रसिया रे, हे प्रभु मन बसिया रे। राम लक्ष्मण जानकी जय, बोलो हनुमान की। राम लक्ष्मण जानकी जय, बोलो हनुमान की। राम लक्ष्मण जानकी जय, बोलो हनुमान। वीर हनुमान अति बलवाना, राम नाम रसिया रे, हे प्रभु मन बसिया रे। वीर हनुमान अति बलवाना, राम नाम रसिया रे, हे प्रभु मन बसिया रे। रघुपति राघव राजा राम, पति राघव राजा राम, पति राघव राजा राम, सीताराम जय सीताराम, रघुपति राघव राजा राम, वीर हनुमान अति बलवाना, राम नाम रसिया रे, हे प्रभु मन बसिया रे। वीर हनुमान अति बलवाना, राम नाम रसिया रे, हे प्रभु मन बसिया रे, हे प्रभु मन बसिया रे, हे प्रभु मन बसिया रे। मनोजवं मारुतितुल्यवेगं, जितेन्द्रियं बुद्धिमतां वरिष्ठं, वातात्मजं वानरयूथमुख्यं, श्रीरामदूतं शिरसा नमामि। त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव, त्वमेव बन्धुः च सखा त्वमेव, त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव, त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव देव। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति, हरि ओम। सियापति रामचंद्र की जय, पवन सुत हनुमान की जय। So thank you very much for coming to share in study of Hanuman Chalisa. See, we'll continue next time.
Thank you.